Hello, welcome back to Sustainability Channel. I'm Tom Montegino from DeFi ESG. So there are a couple handfuls of things you can do to make the GRESB Infrastructure Assessment as streamlined, as easy, and as impactful as possible. And we're going to be discussing those best practices today. So if you want to learn those best practices to get the best possible score with the GRESB Infrastructure Assessment, please stay tuned. Thank you. So if you learned something from today's video, please tap the subscribe and like button below. It helps me out tremendously with the ratings on YouTube. So back in 2020, I led a team that put together and submitted a GRESB infrastructure assessment where we scored 100%. That's been the only 100% that I'm aware of that GRESB has ever awarded. And yeah, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of dedication and a lot of hard work, but we did it. We scored 100% for the assessment. And I'm going to walk through some best practices, how you can answer the questions to maximize your points, make the process streamlined as possible, and get the best representation of your company with ESG and sustainability. I have two other videos on this subject. I have one for completing an ESG assessment for the first time, and we have another video on maximizing your points, which is very specific to just maximizing your points and some key takeaways to ensure you get every point possible. Because what happens with these ESG assessments is that you're not 100% on 75% of the questions, and that knocks your score down to an 80, whereas you just went a little deeper and wider in clarifying what you do for that area of ESG for each question. And the evaluator was crystal clear that you have controls in place, that you have consistent processes in place for that ESG item. That's how you maximize your points. And we have a video on that, so please watch that video as well. So to hop into this video, really, the key to scoring well is just to answer the questions and to make sure that you understand the question, you understand what the deliverable answer looks like, and you can phrase it in a way that the evaluator from GRESB that's in the Netherlands fully understands your answer and gives you all the possible points. So number one, the first thing you do is review the assessment. And you want to really identify any questions that you don't understand, that you're going to need assistance with, any questions that you don't understand what the deliverable, what the answer looks like. And then after you've done those two things, you want to idea what you have in place and what needs to produce. That's a gap assessment. You identify what gaps you have to fill in to score well. And some of those things you are going to be able to complete the year before the assessment. Other things, it's just going to be too overwhelming, and you're going to have to hold that off to year number 2, and that's fine. And we'll talk about that, what to do for year number 1 a little bit later. Number 2, you want to document what items are needed and what parties, what responsible leaders, managers, individuals in your companies are going to complete those deliverables. The number 3, you do a kickoff meeting. You explain the importance of this assessment. And why is this important? Why is this GRESB assessment important? Well, your score is going to stick around for 3 or 4 years. That's going to be something that investors and stakeholders are going to be able to discover about your company. So if you score poorly, something under 80%, that's going to stick around and represent your company for the next 3 years. And that's not something you want, because you're going to have to explain multiple times to stakeholders, investors, new bosses, other new managers of the company, why you scored poorly back in 2021 or 2022. And that's not a fun conversation to have. So I would do as well as you can from the first very number 1 assessment you do, and really get things off on a good note. And again, anything above an 80 is in the category of okay, good. You know, the closer to 90 you get, the closer to outstanding you're getting with the assessment. And again, it is possible to score 100. I scored 100% back in 2020, and you can as well. And if this is something you want assistance with, myself, DeFi ESG, this is something we can help you with. This is one of the areas we specialize in with sustainability assistance and one of our consulting deliverables. So please contact us. We will be more than happy to help you out with that. So after the kickoff meeting, you want to send out a list of the assigned deliverables. And, there can't be any mystery about what the deliverables are. The closer to fill-in-the-blank style answers and fill-in-the-blank style deliverables from other support groups and departments within your company, the better off you'll be. And you really want to make this, I hate the wording of it, but you want to make it foolproof. The more foolproof you make it, the better direction you give them, the more guardrails you put in place, the better results you'll get. If you don't put any guardrails in place and you give somebody really broad terms to put something together, they're going to go hog wild, and it's probably not going to meet the specifications or look like what GRESB is looking for that deliverable. And of course, basic project management, you want to have a due date. And you want to remind them, a month out, hey, that due date's a month out. Do you need any assistance? Do you have any questions? How are you doing? 2 weeks out, that due date is 2 weeks from now. We got to have this deliverable on that due date, or it's going to hold down and bog us down with critical path. Please make sure I have it by the due date. And besides just emails, I would have live conversations with these managers these things are assigned to. Because if you don't do that, it's not going to happen. You're going to get to the due date, and there's going to be a lot of people holding empty bags, and that's just not a good feeling, and that's not going to be the best representation of your efforts or the company's processes and controls in place as it pertains to ESG and sustainability. Number 5, collect the deliverables. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. I would stay away from having them email you deliverables, because within emails, you lose things, you forget about things, you overlook things. I would have them deposit it in a shared file or a Dropbox style item where they can give you the deliverable, they can give you backup documentation, they can give you the whole story right there. And some of these files will be rather large. I've encountered several files I used for GRESB that it was too big to email. So you're going to have to use these Dropbox style folders and shared folders with many of these deliverables just to make sure you can fully capture somebody's evidence of what you did with one of these subjects throughout the year. And you want to label what everything is. Too many times that I've gone into these shared folders and there's just, scanned documents with no labels and a assigned subject title by a scanner, and it just makes life a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So that should be something you cover during your rollout meeting, is that you have to have a title in every document. And you got to put the documents in the right folders. You can't just put everything in one folder, because that's how your sustainability folks that upload this information misplace things and lose things and upload things to the wrong GRESB folders. Because again, if it's your first or second year, they are still going to be overwhelmed with this process. So a lot of this is just keeping straight what is what answer for the assessment. And number 7, when you upload the GRESB, you have to be sure it is crystal clear to the GRESB evaluators, what the answer is, where they should find it in that document, that you upload it to the correct answer. And quite often with GRESB, I'll upload the same documents like 5 or 6 times. But, the answers for that question might be in different places in the document. So I'll make a note in the actual portal of, what this document is in reference to, where their specific answers are in the document. And then I'll go in the document and I'll highlight the answers or circle it in red. So you want to make this foolproof, because these evaluators at GRESB, they're working 12 hours a day to get these assessments done in a very quick fashion. So if it's not very apparent to them, they're just going to say it doesn't exist. And that's happened to me a couple of times where I submitted something and it was my fault, not the evaluator's fault, but I didn't make it obvious where the answer was. And they missed it and we didn't get points. That happened to me years 1 and years 2 and year 3. I said, this is not going to happen again. I'm going to make this absolutely foolproof that these evaluators find my answers so I get the maximum amount of points. If documents are time out, so with the GRESB assessment, some documents can only be a year old. A lot of documents can't be over 3 years old. So if something is timed out, make sure you have the most accurate, the most up-to-date document. And I've done that before. I put in an old document and we didn't get points for it. So make sure that every document is within the time parameters of GRESB. And if something timed out, it's no longer relevant, you no longer do that, delete it, because all this stuff stays in the GRESB porthole year over year. And you have to just do housekeeping and clean things up to make sure it doesn't bog you down and it doesn't detract from your overall score with GRESB. So those are the basic uploading things right there. And, I've done other knuckleheaded stuff, such as just forgetting to upload certain documents years 1 and 2. And again, it didn't cost us, a whole point, but, a quarter point here, half point here, it adds up. So you just want to make sure that everything has been uploaded. So GRESB offers a review. Before the actual due date, they'll go through your assessment and they'll give you feedback. Other assets that submitted GRESB assessments had some really good experience with that. I have not. The other review they did now, and they just started this about a year or so ago, is after you submit it and they give you a score, they give you a window to go in there and make changes. I would fully exploit that opportunity. Anything that I missed uploading a document on, that I could clarify better, I could better steer them to maximize my points, I would fully exploit those opportunities to capture as many points as I could. If you need direction, if you don't understand, where you're missing points, I would try to get somebody from GRESB on the phone or email for them or do a live review with them. But again, I have to tell you, my experience with their reviews has been mixed. They gave me some good direction, but I've also gotten some bad direction from them and some direction that did cost me a couple points here and there. And again, I don't fault them. They're dealing with a lot. Many of these analysts were new to sustainability, and they saw it a little bit differently than the evaluators did. So that's life. That's life in the big city, and you just got to move on. And again, we're not talking about 3 or 4 or 5 points. We're talking about a couple points it cost me. So at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. But you, as an asset that submits a GRESB assessment, you have to spend a lot of time after you get everything uploaded to make sure you fully answer every question, that it's that's crystal clear what type of answer you're trying to convey. Does it make sense? Are we answering the right question? Do we have the correct documents uploaded? Do we steer the evaluator to where the answer is in that document? Can they get to that within a couple clicks? If it's anything more than, I wouldn't even do 2 clicks. If it's anything more than 1 click, I'd be leery they're not going to find it. I would make it as obvious as possible where the answers are in the documents. Again, highlight, circle, clip and paste, put it on a separate document, show them that. But that's the best way to do it. Make it foolproof. You maximize your points. Quite often, we give GRESB documents of things they don't understand. And you got to remember, as Americans, we do things a certain way. A lot of our environmental and safety documents are on the EPA or OSHA style. They don't have the EPA and OSHA in the Netherlands. They have a different agency, and they're used to ISO standards. So again, you have to put it in that specific standard that they're used to looking for. If you don't, you might not get all the points. So please, make it look like something they would expect. If it looks like an OSHA or EPA document, I would try to make it look like more of an ISO document. So could you get 100% of the points with an EPA or OSHA document? Yeah, but I think there's a risk there of really going sideways with the evaluator. So again, I would just put it in a style that they would expect, and I think that'll help you out a lot with maximizing your total points. Deliverables, are they accurate? And again, you don't want to greenwash anything. If you don't have anything for that, some items you just can't upload. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. And I'll give you a couple examples. So one of the other assets that I helped was an underground parking garage company. And they didn't upload anything for noise pollution or light pollution. They said, Tom, 100% of our operations are underground. This isn't applicable. Well, for some reason it was applicable on their assessment, but that's an easy answer to maximize your points on. If you have to put an answer in there, I would type up a memo saying, we have done, we've investigated and done analysis. No light leaves our operations because it's 100% underground. No noise leaves our operation. It's 100% underground. We use noise dosimetry equipment, and the only noise it picked up was the ambient noise from the local street. Nothing came from our operation. So a basic memo like that will really get you off the hook. So you capture and you maximize 100% of your points. And what did it take? You put together a memo? What did it take? 15, 20 minutes? To go out there by the street with the noise dosimetry app on your iPhone, that takes another 10 minutes. We're looking at like 45 minutes, and you just maximize your points for that item. So little things like that will really ensure you don't get nickeled and dimed and you lose a large amount of points. You want to make sure everything is dated, and is it the correct document for the correct year? So GRESB requires a date to be on anything. And again, some things has to be done every year. A majority of the items have to be done every 3 years. If it's something that is dated, if you're submitting this for 2021 and the document says 2022 on it, they're probably not going to give you points. You could probably use it next year, but it's probably not going to help you for that document. So you want to make sure everything is accurate. Now, with the GRESB assessment, I have done things such as our Harvey operation. We did on Earth Day, we did like a cleanup in some habitat areas around our operation. We cleaned up trash and we put up signage so people don't walk through it. But we had a couple photos, but we didn't have anything to really memorialize that. So I wrote a memo about it. On Earth Day, back on this date and year, we did this, this, and this, and attach the photos. And you get points for doing that. So you're allowed to memorialize situations. But I would be very clear in the memo with date, you did this, that you did it within the applicable time period to get your maximum amount of points. And then absolutely make sure you submit this within the time period. I mean, it'd be pretty embarrassing if you didn't submit it by the due date and you missed your points that way. And people have done that. People have just not submitted assessments. They thought they did. They just never hit the submit button. So make sure it's submitted. Get that. Once that screen comes across that it has been submitted, print that bad boy out. Get documentation that you submitted it, because I haven't had this problem with GRESB, but with Ecovias, every GM and Ford contractor and supplier was trying to get their assessments in, and the system just bogged down. It was slow, and it kept kicking me out. So I ended up having to do the assessment, upload the remaining handful of pieces of information at like 2 o'clock in the morning just to make sure I got it done and got it submitted. So I was going to have these last-minute snafus, and that's what you really want to avoid. And I talk about this in the video about submitting your first ESG assessment. You want to get all these deliverables teed up and ready to go before the year ends. This way, when the new year starts and that porthole opens, you can just upload. And once it gets uploaded, you think about it, you review it, you make sure it's good to go, you hit the submit button. So again, here are some best practices in really answering, submitting the GRESB assessment. I have 2 other videos, one assessment on maximizing your points, the GRESB assessment, and we cover some things a little bit differently with that, and then a second video on submitting your first ESG assessment. So if this video has been some help to you, please check out those videos as well. So that wraps up today's video. If there's another video that I can create for you to help you out with your ESG or sustainability journey, if you have any questions, if you have any curiosity in the realm of ESG or sustainability, please send me those questions. I'll be happy to make a video for you and fulfill all of your curiosities with sustainability and ESG. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a good rest of your day.